Well, we'd like to welcome to the show today, Brandon LaBella. Brandon, I can't say he's coming from any particular place because he's been everywhere, but he's currently in New York. Um, Aside from traveling the world, he's a teacher, he's a coach. He's written a book, Failing Freely. Is that right?
Yeah, the journey to failing freely.
All right, Journey to Failing Freely. So he's keeping really busy, and we're excited to have him on right now, especially at a time where we're working remotely or doing classes from home, and Brandon has some positivity to share with us. And so I'm going to turn the time over to him to tell you a little bit of his story, and then we'll dig into it.
What's up? Thank you so much for having me on. And definitely, I think the story starts, it kind of is very mirrors what's going on right now in today's society. But when I was younger, I was born with food allergies. And so by the time that I started awakening and started to growing into my teenage years, I ended up having allergies to milk, to all nuts, to all fish. And so that was where I kind of felt these boundaries and these limitations. And so I had that choice in those moments to say, am I going to use this to rise up, or am I going to use this to complain and have a very fixed mindset? Oh, I can't have this and be a complainer. Or am I going to appreciate and accept what food I can eat, how I can approach the limitations, how I can bring people together, how can I find a food allergies community, and how can I rise up there? And so it's a really interesting story because based on that and based on rising up, I've had a fair amount of challenges growing up, specifically regarding food allergies and feeling left out. And that has only like made me more motivated towards how I approach everything I do. And so as I continued to grow up into my teenage years and then into the college years, I started to find different ways to explore that curiosity and that creativity from the specific boundaries that I've been given through with my food allergies, with my parents, with school, right? These are all limitations that are beautiful and that allow us to develop into our full potential. But at the same time, there are boundaries and limitations with everything. And so I found that when I was in the college years, in the beginning of the college years, I kind of wrote my book a little bit about how I was trying to be someone who I was not, how I was trying to be popular. I was trying to be the cool kid and always trying to find ways to escape, I guess, for example, what it really means to show up every day being yourself and what it means every day to be trapped. So I trapped myself by trying to be someone who I was not. And I started to learn that through my travel exploration and always learning that there's so many different beautiful cultures out there. There's so many different things that these cultures bring to the table and that you can learn from them. But for those cultures, they really taught me the value of gratitude and really understanding where I'm coming from and what I do have, rather than continuing to try to push the boundary and overstep my limits on everything that I do, which is a very good narrative for what's going on right now. Because right now what's going on is that we have these boundaries that we've never been tested before to really accept, and we can either totally run over them and try to lose ourselves and perhaps put people we love in danger, or we can really step back and look at the small things, look at the simple pleasures of life, and really grow and learn how to accept the limitations and make the most out of every single thing, kind of like how I've looked with the food allergies. So based on what I've been doing and what I've seen in these different cultures, they've really taught me how to appreciate this time with presence, with self-care, with spending time with family and friends, and how to really be present and how to navigate these really difficult, beautiful challenges that we're facing today, but with calmness, with stillness, and with love for the current situation. So it is such a massive change, but at the end of the day, I feel like we are all as a society going to be we're going to benefit so much from this current situation because we're all going to be able to spend more time with ourselves, spend more time with those we love, and really connect with nature, connect with ourselves, and find ways to make the best of this with less consumption, less expense to the environment. And I think it's a really beautiful thing.
Okay, so Brandon, you used the phrase beautiful challenges. I want you to unpack that a little bit for us, because when people think about having really severe food allergies or being stuck inside for months at a time, I don't think most people see that as beautiful or a wonderful thing. Um, how come challenges can be beautiful for you? What does that mean?
Yeah, sure. So I think that with everything that comes your way, we're all learning, we all make mistakes, we're all human beings, and every single step of the way, I am trying my best to learn and be the best that I can every day. But if I look at myself and I say something happens, something wrong happens, and I look at it in a negative light, or I waste time thinking about it, regretting it, trying to complain about it, or any case, that is only going to be a waste of my energy, a waste of probably other people's energy. And so I look at every single thing that comes our way, because it's not something that's bringing us down. It's something that's meant to lift us up. Like we are all meant to lift each other up during these very like trying times. And so I look at every situation, whether it's a rejection from a job company, whether it's failing to complete an ultra marathon, whether it's not being the right fit at a school, all these things, as long as you're showing up and you're giving it your best shot and you're fully prepared, we're all human beings. So I feel that a beautiful challenge is something where every single day we do our best, and we're always learning, we're trying to improve, we're trying to grow with a very like growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset. And then from that case, anything that happens, it's not out of our hands. We are the beacon of the light of ourselves, but at the same time, we need to approach that challenge, and we can either tackle it head on, or we can be lazy, we can be complacent, and we can kind of shy away from it. But that's only going to be regretful later on. So,
All right. So you just dropped fixed mindset for the second time in this interview. That's teacher speak. I know what you're talking about, but not everyone watching. Can you explain to those who are unfamiliar with Carol Dweck and her work, what's the difference between growth mindset and fixed mindset?
definitely, yeah. So for a growth mindset is when something comes your way. It could be, let's say you have a math test and you got a 66 on your math test. You can look at it two ways. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe that like I'm just going to do the same thing that I did before, because my smartness is limited to specifically what I have inside of me. Or you can take it and you can say, wow, you know what? What did I do to prepare for this test that I can truly control? And you, besides just the knowledge that you have inside of you, you also have ways of how to prepare for tests. You also have ways to study for tests. So looking at that in a growth mindset would be, I am going to do better on this test because I can. And you're going to find out and analyze and reflect on what you did wrong on that test. And that will help you achieve a better result that doesn't limit you to only what you inherently have inside of you. It's more about, we're always learning and we're always finding ways to learn. Yeah.
All right. So we're really looking at effort versus intelligence here. And as we look at your life, I mean, you're still really young, but you've done some pretty remarkable things. I'd like to talk about a few of those things because, the kids who are watching this as they're sitting in their virtual high school classrooms or elementary classrooms, a lot of kids are thinking, well, I'm not accomplishing this or this because I'm just not in the right situation to do it. But obviously, you've been able to overcome some of those barriers. So let's talk about a few of those things. First, we have to talk about travel. You've been a million places. Most people, would dream of going to the state next over, but you've been all over the world. How did that start, and what did you have to change in your mind to be able to become a world traveler?
Yeah, I think it comes down to specifically when you are achieving whatever that freedom is for you, whatever that little niche is, you can't achieve full like self-actualization, full self-transcendence, whatever you want to call it, unless you really set the foundation of how you are going to navigate that travel or whatever your dreams are. So the first step is always your parents, right? Or whoever it may be that you have ties to that have given you so much, and finding ways to not leave them, right? And saying like, I'm just going to leave you and leaving the dust, or leave like school or college and just say, I'm just going to leave out of college and travel the world. You got to make sure that you're constantly connecting and letting your family know what you're doing. You got to make sure you're constantly getting that hard work in the classroom, and then find ways where you can, rather than kind of trying to be like, oh, I'm going to just leave you and escape and lie. If you can truly build that foundation of what you want to do, then you don't need to like totally jump off a cliff and do something crazy, but you need to find what will make those around you who you really love and care able to understand why you're doing it, and able to understand that you are enjoying it for your own dream, and bring them along with you rather than just leave them out to dry. So I think that like it doesn't start with having that dream. It starts with having that dream and then understanding how can you bring others around you up with that, because without that base of solid, the finances that I made in the stock market, without the base of like my family, without the base of my like teachers who have allowed me to have a lot of freedom with the relevance there, there's no way I could do that. And I wouldn't have fun with it if I was kind of just lying, or I was going around and like not telling my parents what was going on. So I think transparency was actually the key to the freedom that I was able to create for myself.
So that's an interesting take, and I've never actually heard someone talk about it in that way, that part of accomplishing your dream, obviously it's who you have around you. I think it was Jim Rome that says we are the sum of the 5 people that we spend the most time with, or something like that. But having that transparency and that communication with those that you care about, I think that's important. But what about those kids out there who have big dreams, and the people closest to them, maybe even their own parents, squash those dreams and say, you can't do it, or that's beyond our reach right now? What kind of advice would you have to kids in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty trying time. I mean, I want to get to 193 countries as fast as possible. I'm at 70 right now, and I'm itching to get out there and travel to every country, but I am in no way traveling for a while right now. And so I definitely feel that. And while I can't really fit into your shoes, I do know that specifically you can travel anywhere with your mind, and you can travel anywhere with what you do have. And so it starts with looking within and saying, what do I have? What do I really enjoy? And there's so much that you can find through things that are in your room, that are outside, that are around you in nature. And so, like I said, for me, for someone who is dying to get traveling, every day I travel to another place in terms of my own mind and my own head, right? Running to the beach, biking every single day, doing my yoga, doing my meditation, connecting with on Zoom with all these people, building a garden. So whatever that foundation is of what allows you to just be in the moment and do something that doesn't involve some sort of like some goal or reward, but just you're doing it for the sake of fully enjoying it. I was talking to someone yesterday who was just like, I just love drawing for the sake of drawing. Like once you find that, whatever you can do and be fully present without disruption, that whether it's cooking, whether it's cleaning, like you could be like Marie Kondo, right? Whatever you're doing, there's something in there. You could run 100 miles. You can do so much. And actually, what I found is that I'm so much more focused, so much more present right now than I've been in ever before, because I really can't do anything. So you only have so much that you can do, and you have so much time on your hands. So yeah, I would say look within and say, what do I actually enjoy doing? And not doing it because someone says you should, someone says you can be more productive, you can make the most of the COVID time, but more about, I'm doing this because I just want to do this. And that's like, cool. So like your parents might not agree with it. They might give you some weird looks about it, but whatever you can do, if you find a way to bring them a part of it and have them understand where you're coming from in your dreams, you can do anything. And it might not change the world, but you're not trying to change the world. You're just trying to make yourself better. So.
Okay, cool. Well, let's talk about some of the dreams and some of the things you've done. Let's start with your book. You wrote your journey to failing freely 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay. What led to that? I mean, everybody wants to write a book, but very few people actually do it. So what was the original idea? And then how did you get over that hurdle of actually writing it and then getting it published? What was that like?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, I was just kind of like, it was the summer before, the summer of 20, I wrote it in 2018. It came out in May 2018. But like the summer before, I kind of really started to get into these travels and started meeting some of these people and had these experiences. One was in like South Africa, where I met this homeless guy who lived under a log, and I was climbing this mountain and this like 3-hour talk with him and just like learning about how this guy has absolutely nothing. And he has such a more meaningful life than me. He's so much more fulfilled. And I'm just out here just like working for a company and going out on the weekends with my friends. And I'm like, what is my life really? Like, what is the purpose of that? And then I was going out in Greece and we ended up like meeting these 2 girls, like who were just screaming in a corner, like really drunk. And like, I need help without a phone. And like, we took them back to their hotel and we were like, if this is us when we're 29 years old, then this is really bad news. And so like these like small little clues that started kept and really led me to have a big lifestyle change of completely taking alcohol and like all like unhealthy foods out of my diet. So I started really getting into like running and started running a half marathon and realizing there's so many cool things you can do without specifically harming your body. And that's where the foundation of like self-care really came into. And that led to me trying to run the New York City Marathon and raising a couple of $1,000s for education for Pencils of Promise. And that's where I was so pumped for the race 2 weeks before. And I kind of messed up my knee playing soccer. So, of course, I was very devastated and bummed out. But like I've said, since the foundation of kind of having those food allergies, I always look for what can I do rather than why am I going to complain? And so I just Googled what's the fastest marathon on crutches and kind of did that and did the marathon in 6 hours and 19 minutes. And since then, I kind of had this kind of internal motivation to say, I'm going to share this story and really nothing's going to stop me. So I think in terms of the crutches, I think breath, right? Like just breath and pure presence, pure flow is something that anything is possible. And I'm a big proponent of that. And I wouldn't say anything's possible to do something that endangers your health or endangers other people's health, but you have to look at the risk reward. And if Doc said that I'm not going to get hurt running it on crutches, why not go all in? And I think that that's why I was able to be so present, because I knew that I couldn't lose. If I got to the first mile, it was a win for me. I just had to get to the starting line, and that was that. So then after that, I started really saying, all right, like I'm just going to write this book about like positivity in my journey. And it's definitely not the best written book. It's definitely not the most like crafted written book, but it definitely has a really authentic touch to it. It is definitely something about my journey and what I've been going through and kind of through like high school and college and more about just how to kind of navigate society with your own rules and your own boundaries that are related to self-care and help to kind of avoid the popular track, the bubble that we could really get into where we're kind of living on autopilot. And then living on autopilot, really, although we might achieve that goal of getting into the college of our dreams or that job of our dreams, we might look back and say, well, what is it really for? Do we really enjoy the journey? So it's about enjoying the journey every step of the way. And I definitely did that for that first book. I definitely enjoyed the journey. I actually wrote the book traveling around to I think it was like almost every single state, like 40 states around all of the United States. And like every day I was just in a new culture, like learning about like the different states and stuff. And yeah, so that was super cool. And then really have had a breadth of experiences since then. I think the next book's definitely going to be more, lots of more information in there, probably distilled better. But yeah, I've had a lot of realizations, a lot of beautiful realizations, a lot of really beautiful challenges that I've risen up to. So yeah, that's where we're currently at. And somehow I'm alive, and it's a blessing to be here with you, Tyler. So yeah,
that's fantastic. Well, it's been cool to hear your travels and your experiences, making the most of these beautiful challenges. As we wrap up here, think back to those kids that are in school that feel trapped, that feel like they're not achieving their potential. What advice would you give to them in really chasing after their dreams, starting to take action, maybe where right now, a lot of people are just hunkered down and they're not taking any action. They're just waiting it out. What kind of advice would you give to someone who has some beautiful challenges and it's time to start living?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that like that's a really difficult part of it is like because and once again, I love the question, but I feel like in our society today, where we're all looking to say, what is that to make us feel alive? There is pressure to actually feel that need to do something to enliven yourself. And I think the fact that if someone is sitting in their room, hunkered down in their bedroom, they could be, even though their parents might think that there's something wrong. I might think that they're not being alive. You don't know what's going on in that setting. And there's so much beauty in the little things. They're probably consuming less. They're probably like they're probably like living such a simpler life than us. They're probably like meditating like more than us, and really like maybe bringing in nature into things. So I think the first step is to say we don't need to alive it. Although I definitely say in my book that we need to find what makes us feel alive. I think we need to redefine what it means to actually be alive, because I don't think that practice of what being alive is makes people become someone who they're not, and it makes them alive and less to what they can like actually be. So I would say, but to your question, which is a really good one, I would say build the foundation off safety, right? Build that off. What are the limitations of this current situation, right? What are the limitations? And for me, I know I can't even play with my neighbors. I can't even do anything that doesn't involve my family, and I'm just going to respect their wishes. And that's great. That's beautiful, because that isn't enough. First of all, just following the CDC rules and social distancing is more than enough. Trying to help people in the midst of this battlefield is so admirable and respectable. But like I said, I think sitting back and just saying enough is enough. I'm going to follow the limitations of what I have. And within those limitations, how can I spend the time that I have that are not obligations of school, of family? How can I spend that time that makes me happy? And you know what? If it's video games, if it's eating all day and cooking, keep going with that passion, but stop yourself when it gets when it gets harmful to your health, right? If you notice yourself doing too much of video games or too much of eating, obviously that's not going to be the right place to be. So I think starting with that safety foundation and of what actually feels good in terms of genuine health in relation to the CDC, really starting out with baby steps and not looking at where you're going, just baby step by baby step. Today, I'm going to drink one more glass of water. Tomorrow, I'm going to cook one more or eat one more less dish. Whatever that is, there are so many fun, beautiful challenges you can create with things that you love and you feel like you're doing without harming your health. So I would say it all comes down to living a life that is not harmful to yourself, that's not harmful to the people you're spending and living with, and the people who are around you. And I feel like we have the perfect limitations right now, where we have to start fresh, and you build it off of there, and you can't go wrong. So I would say when you start feeling your stomach not feeling well, even though it felt really good in the moment, that's not really natural pleasure, right? That's superficial. That's a cheap thrill, right? When you find yourself feeling good with behaviors that don't involve short-term things, right? That's when I feel like you can really build off of whatever those feelings are that you can create from that, and then go from there. But I would say you don't need to make this time productive. You don't need to feel alive during this time, but you do need to take care of your own health. And I think whatever that means to you is good enough.
I was going to end with that, but let me just tack on one thing, just given your travels. We live in a culture that's very competitive, where people want more money, they want to have more degrees or more accolades. And a lot of people here in the United States are really seeking after, power and prestige and things like that. But one of the things that you mentioned is feeling like you are enough and you have enough, and enjoying what you do have. What have you observed in your travels that can lead you to say that a lot of people who are most happy have very little? What makes that possible?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good point, and unfortunately, I don't have a response that you're gonna want to hear, and that's the sense that like the more that you veer off the path of going off of the competitiveness and keeping up with the Joneses, the more you're gonna feel inadequate, and the more you're gonna feel unworthy. So I'm not gonna give you some baloney that does make you feel better, like from a perspective of around you. But like I said with the beginning, I think finding a way to take that inadequacy and bringing that back to yourself, and you truly doing this and bettering yourself every day, and finding a new way to improve, finding a new way to grow, and to bring people together through that is something that I did find through my travels. And so when I was traveling to different places, whether it's Finland, maybe it's Papua New Guinea, all these different places, it's such a simpler life. And there's no pressure to achieve. There's no pressure to consume. The pressure is just to be. And like, that is the hardest part. Over here is that when we don't have things to do, when we define our self-worth by our accomplishments, by like where we, like what we do and what we can achieve in our work, the people who are losing their jobs, there's a lot of stuff on the line here. But one of the things that I'm concerned about is that their purpose is gone. That sense of talking about Maslow's hierarchy, right? Their sense of like actualization and esteem is gone. So what I've found in these other countries is that the way that they live and they operate has so much less focus on basing your worth on achievement and more focus on you being a really good family member, you following the rules, and just feelings of peaceful acceptance. That's how I would describe it. But so through these travels, it's like everyone, they live so much simpler and more basic. And so because of that, all the things that we do truly have here, it's way more complicated. So I think simplification, and I like this quote that we can end on, is like, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Because it truly is true, is that this is the most complicated place I've ever been in right here in this current scenario. This is way more complicated than any of the countries I've ever been to. And that's why they're probably doing a little bit better on the mental health side than us, is because this is just natural for them. They're like, we get to just do this. This is part of why a lot of the Scandinavian countries are the happiest countries in the world when I did explore them, is because they live with Haig and these different values and that all revolve around family and being. And that is what they define their worth around. It's about kindness and love, and it's not to find their worth about what they achieve. So that's what I've learned from my travels, and that's what I have been able to take back here. But as I said, really not following that path and going off your own path is not easy in any way, shape, or form. So I would recommend you to conform as much as you can while maintaining your own freedoms and using that to bring people together. Because I think it's very unrealistic for you to say, drop out of college, start your own business, make that $1 million dream, because you're probably going to set yourself up to fail.
Cool. Wise words. Thanks, Brandon. Well, as we wrap up here, thanks for taking us on your journey with you a little bit and sharing your experiences with us. Is there a place where you'd like us to go to learn more about you? Do you have a central hub or social handles that we can go to?
Yeah, definitely. So my website will be up probably this week, in the next couple of days, hopefully. But it has all different like mindset hacks for growth, and that's just brandonlabella.com. But it's
Perfect.
Still like, we're still playing around with the stuff, and then we're gonna do a new like self-care whole thing for the whole like Care-Rona kind of thing with self Corona. So yeah, definitely look out on that. But I would say you can follow me on Instagram too. I think it's Grateful LaBella. I'll give you the information for
we'll
the show.
We'll put them in the description. That sounds good.
But yeah, and then if anyone, the first 10 people who reach out to you, I'll send them a signed book. So I don't want them to buy my book. If they want a book, I'll personalize it to them. So you can just let me know if anyone reaches out to you, and I'll be happy.
Well, we'll put information about that in the description for the video. And that's incredibly generous. Thank you so much, Brandon. It's been a pleasure to have you. Take care. It's been awesome.
Yeah, appreciate it, brother.